Do you know why this tweet from Homeland Security is so dangerous, calling for remigration? As a former history teacher, let me explain to you why you need to understand the context and use of that term specifically and what it could mean for the United States. Also, we told you this would happen, but let's get to the history and how it's even being used today in Europe. Let's start by going back in time to Germany in the 1930s. I know, not the best place to time travel to, but you need to understand what the Madagascar Plan was. This was a plan set up by the Yahtzee government that intended to solve the Jewish question, historical educational purposes only. Their plan was to deport them to the island of Madagascar, just to get rid of them entirely, because again, it was all about ethnic cleansing. They wanted pure Germans, and that population, well, they weren't really German. In fact, they didn't even see them as human, so the best solution was to get rid of them. Now are you starting to see why it's so dangerous that Homeland Security is using that term remigration? And it's also picked up steam recently in Europe. Let's go to Italy, where Giorgia Meloni, the current prime minister, is advocating for these policies and even put them into place. And just to be clear, this is taking off throughout Europe, not just Italy. It has been propagated by far-right groups across the continent over the past several years. But Italy is where it's actually starting to take off, as it were, because they do not have birthright citizenship. Being born in Italy does not guarantee you the right to live there or become a citizen. Unlike the United States, where we have the 14th Amendment and the protection of birthright citizenship. And by the way, the current administration is challenging that. They want to strip people of their citizenship and get rid of birthright citizenship to make it like Italy. So even if you have legal status here, you're living in a country legally like Italy, and you have a child there, that child is not guaranteed citizenship or even legal status. And in Italy, people are concerned that their children, even though they are there completely legally, could be deported to a country that they have never seen or known. And that's what they want to try and do here in the United States, because again, you've probably heard of something else called the Great Replacement Theory, propagated by far-right podcasters, news figureheads. I use that term loosely. This has been going on for decades, and now it's in motion. It was written down in Project 2025. You didn't listen, and here we are today. And now the Department of Homeland Security is blatantly dog-whistling white supremacist groups, far-right groups, by using the term remigration, which is just a fancy way of saying whitey supremacy and ethnic cleansing.
Well, the official Homeland Security...
Hey, Shalom. I'd like to start out by giving all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rekakwadash. Double honors to the elders, the apostles, and the elders of the Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect of Israel. This is Demayim in Atlanta, and you just saw that little clip there. This is from the page GMS Austere Man. He makes a lot of great videos, great lessons, but right here he just put together a little mix of different clips going into remigration. And so I actually want to pull up that tweet from Homeland Security that she had pulled up. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that came out November 28th, 2025. The stakes have never been higher and the goal has never been more clear. Remigration now. And so that's what we're going to be looking into today, Lord willing. So I pulled it up on ChatGPT not too long ago. And I said, give me the definition and history of remigration. And so here it is. It said, here's an overview of the meaning and history of remigration, what it has meant at different times, and how its meaning has changed and been politicized over history. So its meaning has been changed. And that's what the Edomites do very often. They do a lot of changing things around. With this would be newspeak, because you have an old word and they gave it a new definition, or you have a old definition that you give a new word to. They change things around, and their biggest change around has been placing their faces onto the faces of Yahweh Bashem El Shai, onto the faces of the Father, on the Son, of the angels on the Israelites, and it's not them. They change things around, and so you see this basic definition here says of remigration. It says in a neutral, historical, or academic context, remigration simply means the act of migrating again, especially returning to one's original or previous home after a migration. So just going back to where you came from. Not anything basically far right as Esau is trying to take it, to have these different meanings to it than it originally meant. But his words were smoother than butter. So you gotta get that, because he's got a way with words. The gift of gab, as they would call it. But Psalms 55, we're going to start out at 20, says, He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. And this always just makes me think of the tribe of Gad, who will make up the so-called Native Americans, but they really go back to the Israelite tribe of Gad. They had 400 plus treaties with the Edomites. The Edomites are so-called white people, including the ones with the tiny hats in the Lord's land, claiming to be the Lord's people. Those are just all Edomites. And these are the same people that are talking about remigration, even though they're basically the problem. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But it makes me think of that, this verse here, because they had 400 plus treaties between tribe of Gad and the Edomites here in America when they were conquering or stealing the land of America. And they were all broken one-sided, all on the Edomite side. It says he hath broken his covenant. They break it because they're liars. There's nothing to trust about them. They are the devil of the Bible, which goes into deceiver. And that's why they're so good with their words. They're good with coming up with newspeak and these new terms that sound really nice, but really, as it says, war is in their heart. Verse 21 says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. Oh, you're just being remigrated, but really they're taking you to some land that you have no idea even exists and placing you there, leaving you there to die. It says, but war was in his heart, because they're about to, as it says, seeing that he hath but a short time, the devil shall come down with great wrath. They're making these things sound in a certain way, but really worse is happening. At first, with the immigration stuff here, it was all about illegals at first, and then it became these illegals are violent criminals, and then it became to, these migrants are violent criminals, but they're going to people's works and taking them and breaking up these families, and they don't look like violent criminals. It's actually shows that they're not violent criminals, because there's two National Guards recently. It's the first incident that shows that they're not violent, because violence should have already happened, but it hasn't, because their words are smoother than butter. They were able to demonize them in just the appropriate way for them to implement their wicked, evil plans. It says, but war was in his heart, his words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. And they've drawn swords already. But it's one of the last times they'll be drawing swords, because we're coming into their end. And that's really what they're fighting for. They're fighting for their prominence that they have here on earth currently, but it's just not going to last. You're the wicked, and you had a temporary rulership. Getting back to this, it says, the word comes from Latin, remigrar. The English version dates back at least to 1608. In migration studies or sociological contexts, remigration or return migration can refer to people voluntarily returning to their country or region of origin. For example, exiles returning after a war. When us as the Israelites return home, that'll be a true remigration. It says, or are migrants immigrating back when their stay abroad ends. So at its origin, and in many academic uses, remigration equals return or remigration, often voluntary, often unremarkable. A good example would be the book of Ruth. They left Israel, went to the land of Moab. The two sons got two wives, two Moabite wives over there, and the two sons died, the father died, and so Ruth and Naomi came back to Israel. With Ruth, she was a Moabite, so it wasn't remigration for her, but Naomi, who was an Israelite, who left Israel, went to the land of Moab, and then came back to Israel. That is remigration. Unremarkable, as it says right here. It's just something that people do, but Esau, being the devil that he is, and being able to twist things and have just, being the devil, he put a new meaning behind it. It says historical usage in neutral academic context in German, remigration longest meant what English speakers might call return migration, especially when people return to their place of origin after a period abroad, for instance, after the Second World War. Some displaced persons return home, which in sociology policy contexts would be described as remigration. We'll just skip to the bottom. It says, hence, for much of history, the concept was descriptive, not prescriptive or political. Yeah, so it just means to go back to your country of origin. But right here, so you see the exclamation point, it says the modern political meaning, far right adoption and reinterpretation. So their newspeak, their modern spin on stuff, in which that's what they're like spin doctors. That's what they do. That's where you get quote unquote white Jesus from, and the Father, the Son, the angels. They put their reinterpretation on it, which is blasphemy. They'll have to pay for that. They change history to place themselves there, which is just evil. Stealing other people's, it says they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. They've taken and placed themselves into all sorts of countries and history that they're not even a part of in the first place. But yeah, that's what they do. They reinterpret it for themselves to benefit themselves. This is over the last several decades, especially since the 2010s, the word remigration has been co-opted by far-right ethno-nationalists and identitarian movements in Europe, and its meaning has shifted significantly. Key elements of this modern usage: remigration is used as a euphemism for mass deportation or forced return of immigrants or even their descendants, often non-white or non-European, regardless of their legal status or even citizenship. And that is what they're doing right now. All this ICE stuff is exactly what this is. And they're not even just returning them to their original land, they're returning them to different places. At first, I think it was prisons in Guatemala or Honduras somewhere where they were taking them to. They could have been from Chile, and then they just drop them there in Honduras or Guatemala, wherever that prison was. And then there was those that were they had prisons in Africa or something as well, and they were just dropping them off over there. And then they were even finding bodies washing up ashore from those long flights, just showing you that this is the devil. And then to show you they're trying to strip citizenship, says Trump wants to revoke, it's a denaturalization of U.S. citizens, right into Google. It says Trump wants to revoke citizenship from some naturalized Americans. What to know? And this is going into those that he thinks are criminals, which anytime you hear an Edomite talk about people being criminals, it's just, you should know that really they're just trying to set somebody up. It's words are smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. It says the goal of proponents to achieve ethno-cultural homogeneity by removing immigrants or migrants seen as foreign, sometimes under the banner of preserving national identity. And that's what they're talking about with this this replacement ideology or whatever they're talking about. They've been talking about for a while. It's like, you are doing this. You're creating the problems. Your brothers, the Amalekites, the ones with the tiny hats, are bussing in all these other people from these other countries, especially in Europe, and they did it here in America as well. And you're blaming everybody else except for who's doing this. You're not looking at it, and I've realized Edomites can't call themselves out. They don't know. They're not call themselves out, but they can't see their own wrongs. It's kind of crazy. They don't like admitting fault because they want to be in this superior position. But yeah, your own people, who they even try to consider not their people, that's who's doing this. You're doing this to yourself. And ultimately, the Edomites destroy the Edomites, with Yahushua coming in for some destruction as well. But they send their own nukes onto themselves, which takes them out of power. They're going to fight themselves, which is going to take themselves out of power, both civil wars and world wars. They're the ones that really are destroying themselves. Moving on, it says the term has been used in slogans by far-right political parties and movements across Europe. For example, German and French identitarian groups and nationalist parties advocating for sending immigrants back rather than integrating them. Because of this shift, many scholars, journalists, and civil rights advocates now treat remigration as a loaded term when associated with xenophobic or racist ideology, and sometimes it calls for ethnic cleansing or forced repatriation. In fact, in German language context in 2023, the term was labeled a non-word by a jury of linguists because its usage by political actors promoted discriminatory, exclusionary policies under a sanitized vocabulary. And so our Department of Homeland Security is actually tweeting out this word, this loaded term, while they're also remigrating individuals. It's like, you're already doing it. Why are you even saying this? And this is all going to go into a time of trouble such as never was before. This is all going to go into Jacob's trouble, which, let's go get that. Let me just type it in. Jeremiah 30:7. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. This time of trouble, such as never been before, is coming to this earth. And Jacob, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, will be trouble, but there will be salvation. There's a elect remnant that will make it out of this. But this Jacob's trouble is going to be everyone else's trouble as well. It's going to be Esau's trouble, who's really the one causing this trouble. It's going to be all the other nations as well. But none of them, it didn't say, but Moab will be saved out of it, or Edom will be saved out of it. This is the beginning of their trouble, but this is the end of Jacob's. Once that deliverance comes, at least. But Daniel 12:1, and at that time shall Michael stand up. This time is still the time of Jacob's trouble. It says, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. That's showing that this time of trouble, is Jacob's trouble, and that this is basically the worst moment in all of human history. All of it. All the worst times basically combined into one. That is what's coming. And you can see these Edomites making moves and building up their rhetoric to go forth so that they can, ultimately they want to do this. Yeah, 2 Ezra 16 and 70. For there shall be in every place in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord, which are the Israelites. It says, they shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. On their remigration rampage. It says, for they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as the gold in the fire. So this time of trouble is coming, but we're about to watch. This time of trouble also marks the end of Esau having any power whatsoever on this earth. And this time of trouble really shows it's the beginning of our salvation as well. So you should look forward to this happening. But Jacob gets saved out of it, not Esau. It says the term has been used in slogans by far-right. Slovakia. Skipping down, it says because of the... Nope. We're all the way down here. This is why the shift matters from neutral to political weapon. This transformation of meaning matters for several reasons. Neutralism becomes euphemism. The benign, technical sense, return migration gives an appearance of neutrality or legitimacy, but in practice, the modern usage often aims to mask calls for mass deportation or ethnic religious cleansing. Yeah, his words were smoother than butter. And it's funny because really, going back to this, they caused all this through their coveting of fields and taking them by violence and stealing all the natural resources through their colonization and through their economic hitmen. They've caused these lack of resources and these other environments, which has forced migration as well. And then they want to just send you back to a lesser place after they've come in and taken everything. It's just Esau has to be taken out of power, and they're being taken out of power. That's why they're even having this rhetoric, because they feel that they are losing Slovakia, that they are losing power, and they are. It says broad target, including citizens. Under some far-right definitions, remigration can target not only undocumented immigrants, but also legally settled migrants, or even people born in the destination country, sometimes ignoring citizenship or naturalization. And that's what they're legally trying to figure out. We just saw it right here. Trump wants to revoke citizenship from some naturalized Americans. What to know? And then he also said that certain countries can't come in, which is normal. You're supposed to have restricted immigration, and you're supposed to vet the people that are coming in, but they're doing it on a completely, it's just flat out, it's evil how they're doing it. It's just racist, Edomite supremacist how they're doing it. They push this big ICE thing, but then at the same time they let those South Africans in. Like, come on. And it's nothing to get angry about, really, because the Lord's about to straighten them out completely. But it's just, his wisdom vanished in Teeman. That mask is completely down. And their moves are so sloppy that the whole world is seeing them. But this is a good thing. We want people to see that these are the devils of the Bible, that this is the son of perdition. 3, normalization of extreme ideas by using softer or more respectable sounding language. Far-right groups may mainstream ideas that earlier would have been openly condemned as racist or extremist. As one critic observed, part of the strategy is a battle of vocabulary. And it is. We're in an ideological war. We're going against this spiritual wickedness in high places, these established norms that have been brought out, and this rhetoric that has been brought out. We're bringing it to life. That no, these aren't the superior people on this earth. These are the Edomites, the devil of the Bible. No, Judeo-Christianity isn't benevolent. It is evil. It is a part of their Edomite supremacy. They changed all the images and tell you that everybody could be saved, which makes you not see them as being the devil that they truly are. But they are that devil. And then change the images. That's blasphemy as well. They've taken on everything that they are not, and we're just coming to the part where they're about to be judged, but they don't want to. They want to set up this new world order. They want to take their land back. That it's not even their land in the beginning. Everywhere they live is stolen. And so it makes it sound even more ridiculous. But socio-political consequences. When adopted by political parties or even governments, remigration rhetoric can influence policy, encouraging expulsions, weakening protections for migrants, or seeking to restrict immigration drastically. And that's all these things are actually happening right here in America already. It says contemporary relevance and controversy. In the past few years, the term has resurged, especially in certain European far-right and nationalist circles. Its use is controversial. Some see it as a coded call for ethnic cleansing or racist expulsion. Others, in extreme right or anti-immigrant movements, present it as a pragmatic proposal for restoring national identity or demographic balance. Because of this dual legacy, neutral academic and political ideological, the meaning of remigration often depends heavily on context and speaker intention. And so in summary, 2 meanings in the tension. And yeah, so you see, you've got the old term, and then you've got the new speak term, which these Edomites are using, calling for ethnic cleansing, for their Edomite superiority and for their ethnic cleansing. But we're at the end of this story, and everybody's about to come against you Edomites, because you are the problem. Habakkuk 2 and 4, behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him. These are just talking about the Edomites, so-called white people, including those tiny tops. Just look at them. Look at their behavior. You look at the greatest Edomite of all time, Alexander the Great, or the Greek. He was an alphabet guy. He was a prolific murderer, and he was an alphabet. That's their greatest individual right there, which shows you their soul that's lifted up ain't upright in them. So we got Nero in office, and you look at what Nero back in the ancient Roman Empire did. The things he married, the people he married, how he treated individuals. These are not upright individuals at all. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith, the just being the Israelites. Yet also because he transgresseth by wine, all his philosophies, even Remigration goes into his philosophies, which is ethnic cleansing. They do that with their blessing, the sword. Because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man. Get out of our country, even though none of them are their country. Even Europe, they took Europe. Just read the Maccabees. Read First Maccabees, the first chapter. They took Europe. They've taken America and all of the Americas, really. Australia, South Africa, everywhere they live. They have stolen this, but then they, through their pride, they tell the natives to get out of their country. But it's not their country. They're thieves. They are the thieves. And the thief comes not but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And how could you say that's not what the quote-unquote colonizers have done? It's easy to identify them as Edomites. That's Idumea right there. It says, neither keepeth at home, because they're colonizers, because they're thieves. If they're not keeping at home, they're destabilizing these nations and taking the resources, draining the resources from them, has created an imbalance. And so to make their lives better after the hell that Edom put them through by taking the resources, siphoning these resources off from their home countries, they come into Edomite countries, in which Esau even encourages it himself, because he had this plan all along. But they don't keep it home. They've colonized the majority of the earth. And with that colonization, they've taken their wines, their philosophies around the majority of the earth. And this has created this position that we are all in currently. But it's not over. There's a lot more to come. It says, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied. So they are insatiable. There's no amount of riches that they could conquer. There's no amount of people that they could put down, or death that they could inflict for them to be satisfied. They're never going to be happy. They are insatiable. It's never going to be enough for them. So even if they did this remigration that they're talking about, they're eventually going to turn on themselves. They're going to start trying to remigrate the Scottish or the Italians, which are, funny enough, she spoke of the Italians doing this. They're starting it in Europe, which is funny because that's where the fasci comes from. Those are the original fascists over there. So you're seeing it starting over there. But even if they accomplish this, they just turn on themselves and try to migrate other portions of Edom out. They're insatiable. It's just never going to happen. It says, but gathereth unto him all nations. So you see that they've gone and put their foot in every nation because they don't keep it home. And then they have these different nations come into their countries. They go into there. They've gathered them all unto them and try to have them all under this wicked Edomite vibration. Do what thou wilt. Or their Judeo-Christianity, which is still do what thou wilt. They say, no matter what you do, the Lord will save you. You just got to call on his name, call on that JC name, and everything's all good. And the laws are done away with all as well. Let's do what thou wilt. Let's all do what thou wilt. Because these are Satanists. These are Satan's people. It says, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And this is what they've been doing for years and years and years. But we're coming to the end of that. They're trying to push these people back to where they came from, or to somewhere they didn't come from. But you're the problem, Esau. You're the one that has infected the world and messed up the world in this manner. But here's what's about to happen. It says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his. They've increased their riches. They've increased their land. They've increased their tongue throughout this earth, or their say, their opinion, their influence. But woe to them that increases that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And that goes into the debt. And they do a lot of their economic, their destabilization by placing these nations under debt. That's what the economic hitmen do. It says, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? So they're going to be for spoils unto everyone else, but especially the Israelites, because they have done the worst to the Israelites. And the Israelites are about to come into power, and so we'll be able to do the worst unto them. Thus saith the Bible. They're going to get double for what they did. Booties goes into spoil. It says, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land. And so not only are the Israelites going to turn onto these Edomites, the people of the other nations are going to be turning onto Edom. They've done wrong by everyone, and it's not just Israelite. They're targeting Israel with this remigration and these ICE raids and all this stuff like that. But there's other nations that are in here as well, and Esau's breaking up their families too. They have a lot of anger towards Edom as well, and really, Lord willing, the Lord lets them get their hands on them too, which they're all heathen. Everybody outside of Israel is going into subjection under Israel, into hardcore captivity. But I don't mind some heathen putting hands on Esau at all. But it's all by the Lord's will. All the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land. And I say, because thou hast said these two nations and these two people, for these two nations and these two people. It says, and for violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establisheth a city by iniquity. And look at this. Look at America, where they're talking about remigration. You built this place on blood, on the blood of Gad, on the blood of Reuben, which are tribe of, or the Seminole Indians and the so-called Native Americans, or the Seminoles and the so-called Native Americans. Those are Israelites, and you've got to pay for that. You've stolen everything in this world. And it's all about to come back and bite you. So go ahead and make your move. Try to remigrate people. Try to pull your NWO. Do it. Do it. We're all tired of this. You are too. So let's get it going. So Lord willing, that was edifying. I'd like to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Wachakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the great millstone. Shalom to the elect of Israel. Shalom.